Hello everyone, my name is Sophia. I'm one of the tutors at LearnFellow, and today I'm going to be going through some ACT English practice questions. So I'm going to try and do about half of the questions. We'll see how far we can get in a reasonable amount of time, but without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? So for these questions, I like to read the sentence and replace it with all of the other options. So, at first, Brazilian chef Alex Atala opened his restaurant in Sao Paulo in 1999. People told him he'd never succeed. Okay, so we know that the at first is not going to work because of this second clause here. So, I think the best choice would be when, just looking at it, so let's try it. When Brazilian chef Alex Atala opened his restaurant in Sao Paulo in 1999, people told him he'd never succeed. Alright, that sounds pretty good. If we delete the highlighted text, Brazilian chef Alex Atala, that one doesn't work. Alright, so we're gonna go with the when. Next. Okay. Atala, whose restaurant has consistently ranked among the world's best, has long disproven the naysayers, using traditional Brazilian ingredients such as manioc root and even ants. Okay, so when you see a dash like this, that usually means there's going to be another dash. Usually there are two of them when it comes to the ACT English section. So, using traditional Brazilian ingredients such as manioc root and even ants, that sections off that section. The manioc root and even ants sections it off perfectly, so I think that's going to be the right answer. The other answers don't really make sense. Like, this has too many commas in it. That doesn't make sense because the such as should be included. Okay. Next, the writer wants to emphasize the positive experience diners have had at the restaurant. Okay. In innovative ways, he has thrilled diners. Okay. That sounds pretty good. Mystified? That's more like confused, shocked, startled. Those can sometimes have a negative connotation. So I think thrilled would be the best because thrilled really has a positive connotation and the writer wants to emphasize positive experiences. So I'm going to say that's probably correct. Given that all the choices are accurate, which one provides the best transition from the preceding paragraph to this paragraph? Okay, so the last paragraph is talking about Brazilian ingredients and how Alex Atala has, had some good food in his restaurant, stuff like that. So next, we're talking about promoting lesser-known ingredients and persuading producers to cultivate palms. So the note change seems pretty good. Still, Atala felt he could do more for his country and cuisine. Okay, he is doing more for his country and cuisine by promoting lesser-known ingredients. If it's incorporating fragrances, there's not really anything about fragrances in here. And his culinary training, this isn't really talking about that. And affection for his homeland, that, I guess, could work, but it doesn't. It's not really talking about his affection for his homeland. It's more talking about the relation for his cuisine, and D doesn't really talk about the cuisine. So we're gonna go with the no change. Alright. Next, needing 8 years to mature, the tree dies once its large heart is removed. Okay. So, hearts of palm, for example, were typically harvested from Brazil's wild Jucara palms in an unsustainable way. Okay, I think it would be best to do the trees. Okay, if we have the tree dies once its large heart is removed, that's grammatically acceptable. Tree dies once their large heart is removed isn't, because that's a singular verb and there would have to make it a plural, not verb, noun. Okay. Trees die once its, again, trees is plural, its is singular, and tree dies once its, well you shouldn't be using its. So I think then the no change is going to work. Alright, next. Which choice most effectively maintains the essay's tone? Careful harvesting ensures that the tree will live to yield more hearts, resulting in environmentally friendly production. Okay, so the essay's tone, we don't want to do keep doling out, that just sounds too informal. Continue to churn out, that also sounds a little informal. Through and spawn also sounds kind of informal. I think that A is going to be the best choice here. Careful harvesting ensures that the tree will live to yield more hearts, resulting in environmentally friendly production. I think that sounds classy, it sounds precise, brief, and I think that does a good job of maintaining the essay's tone, whereas the other choices are a little too informal, I guess. I think that this is probably the best choice. Alright, which choice is least redundant in context? So whenever you have these questions, usually the answer is the shortest one, but you also have to look at the previous and next sentences. So Atala prioritizes his working relationships with Amazonian tribes, utilizing their historical know-how they have. That sounds pretty redundant. Know-how they have. He aims to bolster tribe members' livelihoods while exposing a wider audience to Brazilian ingredients. Okay, just looking at this, knowledge that tribe members know about their local plants, we wouldn't need the know part. Knowledge of local plants in the area is not as necessary because we're already talking about local plants. So I think D is going to be the best choice. Utilizing their historical knowledge of local plants, he aims to bolster tribe members' livelihoods while exposing a wider audience to Brazilian ingredients. That sounds good. Next, which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? Alright, for instance, Paniwa women have farmed distinctly flavorful chili peppers for centuries. They use indigenous agricultural techniques to create a seasoning called pimenta. I don't know how to say that. Okay, let's replace this with all of the other options. So, Paniwa women have farmed distinctly flavorful chili peppers for centuries, using indigenous agricultural techniques. That does a great job of sectioning off the sentences. When you have this original choice for centuries that use, it just doesn't flow grammatically. But here, if we have for centuries, using indigenous agricultural techniques, that does a good job sectioning off the agricultural techniques. So I think that would be correct. Next, partnering with Instituto Ata. I'm sorry if I'm butchering all these pronunciations, I'm not sure. Have enabled, can't say that, that's not grammatically correct. Enable these women to scale up production. Alright, so this is present. Has enabled is also good because, okay, for centuries using indigenous agricultural techniques to create seasoning called pimenta chico. Partnering with Instituto Ata has enabled these women to scale up production. You can't really say enable these women because you would have to say enables these women. So I think their best choice is has enabled. Alright, which choice is clearest and most precise in context? Expanding awareness of the rich diversity of Brazil's native ingredients, Atala continues to lead in deciphering the country's food culture. Alright, clearest and most precise. These can be a little tricky sometimes. He's continuing to lead. He's expanding awareness of Brazil's native ingredients. Is he deciphering the country's food? Probably transforming. Contorting, that's not really good or clear and precise. Dislocating, that's definitely not the right verb. Atala continues to lead in transforming the country's food culture. With his characteristic passion and intensity, the renowned chef seeks to inspire Brazilians to recover the connections between culture, nature, and food. I think transforming is going to be the best choice here. Deciphering just doesn't necessarily fit in with this context, so I think that transforming is what we're going to go with. Alright, next. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? Okay, so now we're on a new passage. Okay, medieval author and dramatist is one of the earliest known European women playwrights. Okay, so here we're going with some grammar. Because we only have one dash here, that doesn't really make sense. A medieval author and dramatist. We're gonna go with the comma because it separates, right? So we introduce her here, and then a medieval author and dramatist, comma, would properly section off that part of the sentence. So I think that's what we're gonna go with. Alright. Sometime before 959 CE, she entered the abbey at Gandersheim. It was well known as a significant learner of learning. Alright. We're definitely not going to go with no change. This is brief, so let's try it. She entered the Gandersheim, an abbey well known as a significant center of learning. Oh my gosh, keep butchering this. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Historically, that's a little too long. Gandersheim, it was an app. That doesn't really make sense. We're going to go with this because it's the most brief, and it does a good job sectioning off the part of the sentence talking about the abbey. Next, which choice most effectively maintains this essay's tone? Okay, so this tone is straightforward. We're not going to want something too ambiguous. So this circumstance made it okay for her to keep. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Permitted her to hang on to. Kind of redundant. Allowed her to retain. Let her keep up. Okay, let's read the last sentence. This circumstance allowed her to retain her financial status without incurring responsibilities to a husband and children. I think that sounds the best. It sounds precise. It doesn't sound too ambiguous or vague. And I think it does a good job of effectively maintaining the essay's tone. Alright, next. Which transition word or phrase is most logical in context? The circumstance made it okay. Oh yeah, we already did that. Alright. Nevertheless, she had a greater level of independence. She could acquire property, receive guests. Okay. So, as a result, I'm gonna guess is good because it's talking about her greater level of independence. So, because the circumstance allowed her to keep her financial status, as a result, having a greater level of independence is probably going to work. They're not really contrasting each other. So, I think that's going to be the best choice. Alright, now we're looking for a choice that helps indicate each historical epic is covering different subject matter. Okay, so, produced at least 8 narrative religious poems, 2 historical epics, one about the court of Otto, the other about Gandersheim. Okay, this does a good job of separating, right? It's declaring that one of them is about the court of Otto, the first, and the other is about Gandersheim. So that's gonna be what we're gonna do. Alright. Next. Now we're switching to another passage. Okay, amazing. I turn off the gridlocked highway onto a stretch of Route 66 that is surrounded by arid New Mexico hills. Okay. I turn off the gridlocked highway. Okay, I don't think we're going to want any commas at all. If we say the sentence without using any commas, I turn off the gridlocked highway onto a stretch of Route 66 that is surrounded by arid New Mexico hills. That sounds pretty good. The comma would be in the wrong place, and that's in the wrong place. The comma shouldn't be after that is anyway, so I think this is the best choice. Okay, which choice is least redundant? Looking pointedly into the rearview mirror, windows rolled down, I say something about not throwing anything out of the car, but neither boy is listening. Okay, least redundant. So we've already said that the windows are rolled down. We said this in the last sentence, so we're not going to want to say something like that. Behind me, by looking in the rearview mirror, we already know that the rearview mirror is going to be looking behind you because it's a rearview mirror. 3 miles into our detour, we also already said that in the previous sentence. And once again, like I said earlier, the shortest choice is usually the least redundant, and in this case, the shortest choice seems the least redundant. Looking pointedly into the rearview mirror, I say something about not throwing anything out of the car. Alright, perfect. If the writer were to delete the highlighted text, the paragraph would primarily lose what? Okay, we're talking about rumble strips. Rumble strips create that loud grating noise when you drive over them, like a built-in alarm for drivers who drift too close to the road's edge. Alright, Is this information that indicates how prevalent rumble strips are on roadways? That can be true. It's talking about how drivers are drifting too close to the road's edge, so it's talking about the benefit of rumble strips and how they're important to prevent people from taking dangerous actions. A detail that reveals the narrator's opinion of distracted drivers. There's not really any bias there. I don't think that's going to be the right choice. Information that clarifies the primary function of rumble strips. Okay, that's also true. A built-in alarm, that's a good function. Detail that indicates what they look like. Okay, it's definitely not talking about that. So now we're between information that indicates how prevalent they are, but more so than indicating their prevalence, it's talking about the primary function, right? It literally describes what they do. So I'm going to guess that C is the right choice here. Which choice is least redundant in context? Okay. I've been taking this detour ever since these musical rumble strips were installed. We're at it a couple years ago. We already said 2 years up here. The play music were put in. Already says musical were implemented just outside. Already says that. So once again, shortest choice, least redundant in context. Given that all the choices are accurate, which one most effectively leads into the rest of the essay? Okay, awesome. So the rest of the essay after this sentence is talking about glancing back at the boys who've been lulled by the wonder of the song. Alright, so even though constant traffic has worn down the musical rumble strips and warped the sound of some of the notes, there are currently no plans to restore the strips. That doesn't really fit in. Lots of other drivers, not just me, still make this detour to hear the tune. Okay. I think the right choice here is going to be D. If you're saying this detour on our drive home never fails to buoy my spirits, and then the last sentence and the last paragraph says, I feel like everything is going to be just fine. Those kind of go together. Sometimes drivers will turn around and drive over the strips again. I think that D is going to be the right choice. It just fits in the best. Which choice makes the sentence most grammatically acceptable? After the last one of the notes fades into the darkening sky. Okay, I think that's the best choice. Have disappeared doesn't work. Disappear doesn't work because it would have to be disappears. And fade doesn't work either. So, perfect. Alright. I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. Alright. Whom have doesn't make sense. Whose doesn't make sense. They have doesn't either, so we're going to go with A on this one. Which transition word or phrase is most logical in context? Alright. I stopped worrying about work until about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between there and home. For now, I feel like everything is just going to be fine. Okay. I stopped worrying about work, about how many toy cars might have gotten lost between there and home. Until then, doesn't really make sense because she's currently stopping worrying about work. So I'm going to guess that it's for now. Because later doesn't make sense, now and then doesn't make sense, and until then, I don't think that one works, right? At this point, the writer is considering adding the following accurate sentence. I hear there's another musical road in the US, somewhere in California. Okay. I feel like everything is going to be just fine. I hear this just doesn't fit in, right? It's drawing the focus away from the New Mexico musical road and its effect on the narrator. The specific details, that doesn't really make sense. I think that C is going to be the best choice. Okay. The writer wants to add the following sentence to the essay. It is marvelously quiet. Okay. Point A. I say something about not throwing anything out of the car when neither boy is listening. I check my speed. It is marvelously quiet. The speed being marvelously quiet doesn't work. Alright, let's go to the next one. Point B. Then, instead of that jolting, warming noise, we hear the distinct strain of the song America the Beautiful. It is marvelously quiet. The song wouldn't be marvelously quiet. The tune is only recognizable if they're going a reasonable 45 miles per hour. Whether their strategy works, I don't know. It is marvelously quiet. That doesn't really work. After the last one of the notes fades into the darkening sky, okay, so the music has stopped, I glance back at the boys who have been lulled by the wonder of the song. It is marvelously quiet. That sounds the best out of the 4 of them, so we're going to go with that. Alright, now that we've answered 25 questions, I think we're going to stop there. Let's end the test, see how we did. Hopefully we did pretty good. We'll go over any questions that we got wrong. Alright, awesome. Score, 25 out of 50. So, I think that means all the questions are going to be correct. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah. And those are all the questions that we got to. Alright, awesome. All of them are right. Thank you for joining me for this part of the English test. Come back for part 2. I'll do the last 25 questions. And I hope that was helpful to you. See ya!